are listening to the Hour of the Time. I'm William Cooper. Good evening, folks. Tonight is one of those nights, so you better get pen and paper and pencil and something to snack on, and maybe a glass of water or tea or whatever it is that you like to drink while you listen to the Hour of the Time. You're going to want to take notes, and I'm going to give you some books that you're going to want to read as we continue on our quest, our little march toward Albion. Tonight, folks, we're going to talk about one of the greatest mysteries of the last century. From our perspective, during the second year of the new millennium, cosmic end-of-cycle perspective, World War I, the Great War, to those who lived through it, feels as ancient as all those other senseless wars in history. Our only connections with that conflict are faded, sepia-toned images of our ancestors killing each other for reasons vaguely understood even to themselves. Most people, even in this listening audience, would be hard put to explain exactly why World War I was fought and why so many men went to give their lives in it. Demoted by an even greater war, one so large that nothing but the title World War could possibly encompass it, the Great War became a mere fancy dress prelude to an entire century of destruction and horror. And indeed, the 20th century was exactly that. The bloodiest, most devastating, most destructive century in the history of the world. Reading of the ideals and passions of that long-forgotten era feels embarrassing to most of us now. If we think of it at all, we assign it an emotional value somewhere between a massive industrial accident and the migration of lemmings to the sea. When we look back through history, we find many wars and disasters, plagues and conquests, volcanic eruptions, climatic changes and mass migrations. But ladies and gentlemen, we find nothing quite like the Great War. 400 years of European intellectual, moral, and technical superiority created and fed the engines of industrialized murder. These forces in turn consumed the very social order which had created them. And after 4 years, the self-proclaimed masters of the universe lay broken and bleeding in the wasteland, saved from ultimate extinction only by the interference of the United States and its revolutionary republic. Cultural suicide, perhaps? An apocalypse by any other name, ladies and gentlemen, is still an eschatological event. It's the end of the world for the inhabitants of that world. For example, near the end of the Great War, in September of 1918, the Turkish 12th Army, holding the ridgeline in front of Damascus, which included the ancient mound of Medigo, was attacked and destroyed by the combined use of airplanes, tanks, and cavalry. This battle, eerily described in St. John's Revelation, chapter 16, suggests that Armageddon occurred in 1918. Not only is the battle clearly delineated, but it occurred in the midst of the worst plague since the Black Death of the 14th century. Revelation's apocalypse looks much like the history of the 20th century, leading up to one final millenarial explosion. Could this be true? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the millennium has come and gone, and so we know it has not as yet occurred. There's always the possibility that our method of keeping time is not the same. A method used in predicting time by John in his book of Revelation. Was the prophecy of Revelation an ongoing process that essentially started sometime before the Great War? Was the 20th century an unfolding of the final book of the Bible? When the Great War finally ended, on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the old world, with its noble and imperial ways, was well and truly dead. The victorious Allies propped up the corpse of Europe, and using all the tricks of the undertaker's trade, gave it the brief appearance of animation. This lasted just long enough to necromancy a treaty together at Versailles. It decomposed soon enough, its stench conditioning Europe for the burned bacon aroma of the Nazis soon to come. But while it lasted, this zombie summer of fast-fading European superiority galvanized the entire world. The epicenter of this fleeting renaissance was Paris, the city of light. During the war, this city had been the goal for which millions of men had marched, fought, bled, and died. As it had been for centuries, Paris was a symbol to both sides in the conflict of something irrepressible in the human character. And after the war, it became a Mecca for all those who felt that the world must be changed somehow by the horror and sacrifice of the war, and that this change must mean something, say something, and do something. They went to Paris like insects drawn to the light of immolated cultures, having burned their candles all at once in the final auto de fe of European civilization. They firmly believed that out of that conflagration would come a better world. Same dreamers dreaming the same dream. And so they came to Paris to help create that world. Mystics, visionaries, painters, poets, artists of all kinds, scientists, political thinkers, revolutionaries, expatriates, all looking for that new world of hope, peace, and freedom, which they felt must grow out of the war to end all wars. The conflict, they thought, had made them all equal now. They mingled on the boulevards. They drank. They talked at the cafes and bars and bookstalls. They plotted and painted late into the night in small cold water flats in the Montmartre, or danced and drank in the nightclubs and demi-monde dives of the Latin Quarter. As if driven by deep-rooted survival guilt, everyone wanted to live fast, fully, and gloriously. Paris in the post-apocalyptic 20s appeared to be the light of the world, the flashpoint of history, and the beginning of the end of time itself. And remember that statement, the beginning of the end of time itself. Remember that. I'm going to repeat that theme throughout this broadcast. Out of all this too brief efflorescence emerged artistic, literary, social, political, and scientific concepts that shaped much of the rest of the 20th century. From the Surrealists such as Hans Arp and Marcel Duchamp, to the mathematics of Paul Dirac, to the literary pyrotechnics of James Joyce, the idea of transformation bubbled just below the surface. Remember that also, for that will be, too, a recurring theme. It was at the zenith of this transformative undercurrent that in 1926, an anonymous volume, issued in a luxury edition of 300 copies only by a small Paris publishing firm known mostly for artistic reprints, rocked the Parisian occult underworld. Its title, The Mystery of the Cathedrals. The author, Fulcanelli. He claimed that the great secret of alchemy, the queen of Western occult science, was plainly displayed on the walls of Paris's own cathedral, Notre Dame de Paris. And he was right, as you've heard on previous broadcasts. In 1926, alchemy by our postmodern lights, a quaint and discredited Renaissance pseudoscience, was in the process of being reclaimed and reconditioned by two of the most influential movements of the century. Surrealism and psychiatry stumbled onto alchemy at about the same time, and each attached their own notions about reality to the ancient concept. Carl Jung spent the 20s teasing out a theory of the archetypal unconscious form of the symbolic tapestry of alchemical images and studying how these symbols are expressed in the dream state. The poet, philosopher André Breton and the Surrealists made an intuitive leap of faith and proclaimed that the alchemical process could be expressed artistically. Breton, in his 1924 Surrealist Manifesto, announced that Surrealism was nothing but alchemical art. Fulcanelli's book would have an indirect effect on both of these intellectual movements. Indirect, ladies and gentlemen, and here we begin this great mystery. Indirect because the book managed a major literary miracle. It became influential while remaining apparently completely unknown outside of French occult and alchemical circles, and remember, there were only 300 copies in existence. Now, this is perhaps the strangest of all the mysteries surrounding the mystery of the cathedrals. One illustration suffices to show the magnitude of the occasion. The occasion, ladies and gentlemen, being the occlusion, the hiding, the secreting of the source of all that was influenced. Take any art history text on the Gothic cathedrals written in the last 30 years and look at what it says about the obscure images found on the walls and entranceways of Notre Dame. You will find, 4 times out of 5, that alchemy is mentioned as a possible meaning for these vaguely Christian images. You will also find, especially if the textbook is in English, that Fulcanelli and the mystery of the cathedrals are not ever given as a source or mentioned in any way whatsoever, although it is the only source from which such information could have been obtained. There was, and you may have seen it, a popular television special on alchemy hosted by Leonard Nimoy. It used the very same images from Notre Dame that Fulcanelli presents in his book, describes them in direct Fulcanelli paraphrase, and never ever mentions the source, as Fulcanelli are les mystères des cathedrals. It's as if the concept entered common usage without ever being individually articulated. Do you believe that? Well, we may call this the dog that didn't bark in the night effect, like the dog that doesn't make a sound while the house is robbed. Fulcanelli's work is conspicuous by its absence. On the other hand, the book's widespread influence suggests an importance far beyond the antiquarian idea that the cathedrals were designed as alchemical texts. To understand the silence, it might be a good idea to try and understand Fulcanelli. The earliest known incident where his name was ever mentioned was in 1926 when publisher Jean Schmidt received a visit from a small man dressed as a pre-war bohemian with a long asterisk, that big Gaul-style mustache, thick, crossing the midline of the face above the lip, but not curled up or hanging down. The man wanted to talk about Gothic architecture. the green argot of its sculptural symbols, and how slang was a kind of punning code, which he called the language of the birds. A few weeks later, Mr. Schmidt introduced to him again as Jean, or Jean in the French, Julien Champagne, the illustrator of a proposed book by a mysterious alchemist called simply Fulcanelli. Mr. Schmidt thought that all three, the visitor, the author, and the illustrator, were the same man, and perhaps they were. And this is the most credible Fulcanelli sighting. Beyond this, he exists as words on a page, and in some occult circles as a mythic, alchemical immortal with the status or identity of a Saint Germain. There were two things that everyone agreed upon concerning Fulcanelli. One, he was definitely a mind to be reckoned with, and two, he was a true enigma. What seems to have happened is that Fulcanelli's student, a young occult upstart named Eugene Cancelier, offered the publisher the manuscript of The Mystery of the Cathedrals, or in French, Les Mysteries des Cathedrals. Schmidt bought it, and Cancelier wrote a preface for the book in which he stated that the author, his master Fulcanelli, had departed this realm. What he meant by realm, no one really knows. He then goes on to thank Julien Champagne, the man whom Schmidt thought was Fulcanelli, for the illustrations. Champagne, a minor symbolist artist and inventor far into an absinthe-fueled decline, had gathered around him a small entourage, including Cancelier. The talk always centered around alchemy when they met in the small cafes of the Montmartre. Champagne lived nearby in the Rue de Rochechouart, and his sixth-floor room in the crumbling Parisian tenement was often the scene of late-night symposiums on all sorts of occult subjects. Now, in this country, when I say occult, many people shiver and sort of cross their arms across their chest in fear. Occult simply means secret or hidden. Has no connotation of evil, unless, of course, it's used in an evil manner. It is simply hidden information. To his young friends, he must have seemed like a ghost from another age, with his unfashionably long hair, his riddles, his mustache, and most of all, his claim to know the secrets of alchemy. At the time, no one else but Schmidt seemed to believe that Julien Champagne was Cancelier's master, Fulcanelli. His taste for great quantities of Pernod and absinthe indicated a man too dissipated to be as knowledgeable and erudite as the author of Cathedrals. However, he certainly did know a real alchemist. Whoever Fulcanelli was, and his illustrations show that he indeed had a profound understanding of the alchemical art. No doubt about it whatsoever. So we are left with the unsolvable mystery of the missing master alchemist, a man who does not seem to exist, and yet is recreated constantly in the imagination of every seeker who treads the path. A perfect foil for projection. We might even think it was all a joke, some kind of massive, elaborate hoax. Except for the material itself. When one turns to Mystery of the Cathedrals, he finds a witty intelligence who seems quite sure of the nature and importance of his information. This Fulcanelli knows something. and is trying to communicate his knowledge. Of this there can be no doubt. Fulcanelli's main point, the key to unraveling the mystery, lies in an understanding of what he calls the phonetic law of the spoken Kabbalah, or the language of the birds. This punning, multilingual wordplay can be used to reveal unusual and, according to Fulcanelli, meaningful associations between ideas. What unsuspected marvels we should find if we knew how to dissect words, to strip them of their barks and liberate the spirit, the divine light which is within. Fulcanelli writes, he claims that in our day this is the natural language of the outsiders, the outlaws and heretics at the fringes of society, and a secret communication method used by the adepts of all of the mysteries. And now I'm going to depart from Fulcanelli for just a few seconds, and I'm going to read you a quote from St. John chapter 1, verse 1 of the King James Bible. St. John chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. There's more to language than most of you would ever even want to believe. This language of the birds was also called the green language of the Freemasons. All the initiates expressed themselves in cant. Fulcanelli reminds us, who built the art Gothic of the cathedrals, ultimately the art cot, or the art of light, is derived from the language of the birds, which seems to be a sort of earth language taught by both Jesus and the ancients. It is also related to the Sufi text by Attar the chemist entitled The Conference of the Birds. In de Tasset's French translation of this work, which Fulcanelli references, the conference of the title is translated as language. De Tasset goes on to explain the complex linguist metaphor beneath the simple fable. And Fulcanelli uses the same method to decode the alchemical meaning of the cathedrals. Fulcanelli also claims that Rabelais, Gargantua, and Pantagruel is a novel in cant that is written in the secret language. You've heard me discuss this before on many, many broadcasts. The secret language, the lost word of Freemasonry. You don't really see it. Offhandedly, he throws in Tiresias, the Greek seer who revealed to mortals the secrets of Olympus. Tiresias was taught the language of the birds by Athena, the goddess of wisdom. Just as casually, Fulcanelli mentions the similarity between Gothic and Goetic, suggesting that Gothic art is a magic art. And from this, we see that Fulcanelli's message that there is a secret in the cathedrals, and that this secret was placed there by a group of initiates, of which Fulcanelli is obviously one, depends upon an abundance of imagery and association which overpowers the intellect, lulling one into an intuitive state of acceptance. Fulcanelli, like Shakespeare, overwhelms the reader with his brilliance. It is so difficult to accept this man as anything but an incredible intelligence. I read The Mystery of the Cathedrals years ago. I recommend that you find the English version, buy it, read it. Be prepared to be overwhelmed, confounded, amazed, and gleeful, all at the same time. The author, once again, is simply Fulcanelli. And even after careful reading of The Mystery of the Cathedrals, I found that the mystery of the cathedrals is never really explained. And that what one assumes to be the basic mystery of alchemy is only glancingly delineated. You see glimpses here and glimpses there, and shadows play across the mind. It's great fun. There are illusions that escape the reader as easily as a mosquito glimpsed out of the corner of your eye. At moments, a glimpse of a great truth flits by, giving a hint of something absolutely incredible. And then, just like the mosquito, it's gone. Cathedrals feels more like a Japanese haiku poem, actually. One that is ephemeral and fleeting. Some people reading The Mystery of the Cathedrals become very frustrated. They start over, reading even more carefully, following the allusions and associations, trying to find and pin down the core of meaning that one senses is there somewhere, and it is there. But remember, you are the profane, seeing the exoteric meaning of an esoteric secret language in which Fulcanelli is explaining one of the great mysteries of the occult sciences, and you just don't get it. And all of this makes Cathedrals an almost perfect surrealist text. And those of you who are enamored by Surrealism, love surrealist art, like to read surrealist books, will love The Mystery of the Cathedrals. It's a modern alchemical version of L'Entremont's Chants of Malador, the surrealist's favorite 19th century novel. Fulcanelli's use of punning wordplay to convey spiritual meaning would have absolutely delighted the surrealists, and if there are any listening, it will delight you also. They also embraced Rabelais and understood this kind of linguistic alchemy in terms of the correspondences and connections between objects or ideas on different levels or scales of being. The classic example of this being L'Entremont's sudden juxtaposition on a dissecting table of a sewing machine and an umbrella. And yet, even though Fulcanelli's basic idea and operational and linguistic alchemy used by sages or Hermetic philosophers to transform reality become part of Surrealism's intellectual currency, none of the Surrealists mention Fulcanelli or Mystery of the Cathedrals. Once again, he is occluded. Only Max Ernst makes any allusion to Fulcanelli in Beyond Painting, published in 1936, I also recommend that you read that book, Beyond Painting, 1936. However, ladies and gentlemen, by the late 1940s, the work of the movement's founder, André Breton, in both his book Arcana 17 and the catalog for the 1947 Surrealist exhibition, appears to have been heavily influenced by Fulcanelli.
Some say love, it is a river that drowns the tender reed. Some say love, it is a razor that leaves your soul to bleed. Some say love, it is a hunger, an endless aching need. I say love, it is a flower, and you, its only seed. It's a heart afraid of breaking that never learns to dance. It's a dream afraid of waking that never takes a chance. It's someone who won't be taken, who cannot seem to give, and the soul afraid of dying that never learns to and the night has been too lonely, and the road has been too long, and you see that love is only for the lucky and the strong. Just remember in winter, far beneath the bitter snow, lies a sea that with the sun's love in the spring becomes
Surrealism in 1948, or I should say 1947, that was the year of the catalog. Surrealism in 1947, in fact, that's the name of the catalog. The Surrealist exhibition catalog is full of seemingly Fulcanelli-inspired articles such as Liberty of Language by Arpad Mezai. In this article, he explains the occult dialectic through linguistics. Let me say that again. In this article, he explains the occult dialectic through linguistics. If you don't know what dialectic means, you had better look it up. Mezai goes on to announce that language is really an ensemble of symbols, and this conception of language is not far off that which existed in magical civilizations, because the interchangeability of reality and language is the base and the principal key of all Hermetic activity. And if you've been paying attention lately in this country, you can see how it can be used in the alchemical process to bring about a transformation or a transmutation in the minds of what the socialists call the masses. You see what I'm really talking about here, and not even mentioning, but everyone listening who is well versed in the history of the occult knows that just below the surface of what I am giving you lies a stream of knowledge is flowing from my lips through this microphone into the ears of those who understand, those who can hear. Everyone else doesn't hear the true message at all. They're listening to an entirely different story. Underneath all that I am telling you in this history is the manipulation of a secret order called the Fama Fraternitas Rosicruciae, or the Rose and Cross, an order that is still very much active today and still practicing alchemy, occult dialectic through linguistics, an ensemble of symbols, the key, the principal key of all Hermetic activity. As if to make the point even more pointed, our Padmezai and Marcel Jean contributed an article on the occult meaning of the Surrealist's favorite novel, The Chants of Maldoror. Their analysis of this novel could be applied just as fruitfully to the mystery des cathedrals. Indeed, following Mazai and Jean's advice by working backwards, listen to me carefully. By working backwards is a good roadmap for navigating Fulcanelli. André Breton himself contributed a chart to the catalog for Surrealism in 1947, showing personalities and their associations with the images of the tarot cards, a continuation of the ideas that he had begun in his earlier work, Arcana 17. And ladies and gentlemen, while the tarot is not an obvious connection with Fulcanelli and the mystery of the cathedrals, as we will soon see, Breton's use of the tarot as alchemical metaphors suggests that he had read Fulcanelli even closer than most, because he at least understood some of the underlying message of the book. 10 years later, 1957, Breton wrote The Art of Magic, in which he insists that magic is an innate capacity of all humanity which can never be long suppressed or controlled. And with that admission, Surrealism takes its place alongside the literary works of Joyce, Lovecraft, and Borges as an important 20th century artistic addition to the Western occult tradition. It would seem that Fulcanelli contributed to that artistic evolution, except the conspicuous absence of direct reference argues against it. Nowhere is he mentioned as a source, and yet his work was the only known published work of its kind in existence from which that information could have come. Fulcanelli's ideas seem to be present in Surrealism from its inception, growing more prominent as the movement matured. And possibly one answer lies in the anonymity of Fulcanelli himself, since Fulcanelli, we believe, is a pseudonym. The Surrealist may have absorbed his ideas from a common source who may have been the real person behind the name. Now that's a very interesting proposition. Yet even that idea fails to explain the curious reluctance of anyone, surrealist, art historian, alchemical scholar, anyone, to address the meaning of Fulcanelli's work. And once again, this conspicuous absence is very suggestive. Even the great American occult historian Manly P. Hall, whom I have quoted from extensively, completely fails to mention Fulcanelli anywhere in any of his work. Why? The silence suggests a secret. The mystery of the cathedrals is the secret of alchemy in the sense that alchemy is an ancient initiatory science. Fulcanelli selected his materials carefully to convey in the clearest and most direct manner possible that he did indeed know the secret. Much has been made by the few occultists who have looked into Fulcanelli and his work about the difficulty of his writing. Threading a path through Fulcanelli's minefield of classical illusions is daunting to all but those who enjoy sampling ancient wisdom for its own sake. Without a key, without the knowledge, the text remains, reading after reading, for most incomprehensible. However, as in the Sufi story, the greatest treasure is hidden in plain sight, as I have told you repeatedly over and over on this broadcast. Fulcanelli slyly directs us with his comment on goetic, or magic art. The magic, the secret, is in the art. He tells you, and yet you don't see it. It's like the old story of St. George slaying the dragon. All allegorical, all metaphor. And everybody grows up and goes through life thinking St. George really slew a fire-breathing dragon, this big, great, giant dinosaur lizard. Killed him with his sword, his lance. And that's not what the story was about at all. The dragon represented the demonic nature, the animalistic desires, cravings, and temptations of the base metal, of the baseness in man. When St. George slew the dragon, he slew the evil within himself. He committed an alchemical act, changed the lead into gold. Why is it a fire-breathing dragon? Remember, this is a saint of the Catholic Church that suppressed knowledge, created the Dark Ages for hundreds of years. The Dark Ages was the suppression of knowledge, the suppression of freedom, the demand for conformity upon pain of torture and death or burning at the stake. The fire represented knowledge. How do you get knowledge of the base nature? You get it through experience. To have knowledge, you must first eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Are you beginning to understand what I'm trying to impart to you? That most people live, read, breathe in a fantasy world that does not exist, while all around them the truth is displayed brazenly for all to see, but most never, ever see. The greatest treasure is hidden in plain sight. Fulcanelli slyly directs us with his comments on goetic, or magic art. The magic, the secret, is in the art. What did I tell you about magic in past broadcasts? It is simply the art of illusion. Oh, I can see people out there looking at each other. What did he say? What did he say? Don't worry. It will sink in. You will receive the fire. And it may burn your hands, but you're going to get it sooner or later. Like a message in a bottle from the last initiate, the mystery at the core of alchemy surfaced in 1926 when J. Schmidt and Company released its limited edition of Le Mystère des Cathedrals by an author who called himself simply Fulcanelli. Although apparently well known, at least by reputation to his contemporaries, Fulcanelli's true identity remains uncertain to this day. What is certain is that Le Mystère des Cathedrals created a sensation among the Parisian occult community. And it began to work its magic, affecting politics, science, and even art. Without ever being sourced, with no recognition, with only 300 copies in print. That is a phenomenon that cannot be overlooked because it is on a magnitude of such great importance if it had that much influence. From our modern perspective, fitted on this age of wonders, it is hard to see why, from the book itself, Le Mystère is full of arcane scholarship and obscure erudition, making it hard to follow the book's symbolic train of thought. In some occult circles, this increased its appeal. However, the basic premise of the book, that Gothic cathedrals contain Hermetic books in stone, was an old-fashioned idea going back to the 19th century romantics, such as Victor Hugo. How many of you read The Hunchback of Notre Dame? Get it. Read it again. And if you don't see what I'm talking about, read it once more. We will continue this, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow night, because we are not finished with the mystery of Fulcanelli. Not finished at all. And for those of you who want to get a jump on everybody else, tonight's broadcast was taken from my own research and from a book called Monument to the End of Time, Alchemy, Fulcanelli, and the Great Cross, The Cross at Hendaye, by J. Wiedner and Vincent Bridges. I suggest you buy this book. When you read it, however, as all esoteric texts, it is meant to convey a message, an esoteric secret message to those who know how to decipher it. It is full of traps, false information for the profane and for the ignorant. And you could go away from this book with the wrong message. Remember that. But nevertheless, buy it and read it. It contains a message worth deciphering if you have the mind to do it. Good night. God bless each and every single one of you. Good night, Annie, Pooh, and Allison. I love you so very, very much. Remember, just beneath the surface of all of this is the rose.
that leaves your soul to bleed. Some say love, it is a hunger, an endless aching need. I say love, it is a flower, and you, it's only seed. It's the heart that feels the breaking, that never learns the dance. It's the dream afraid of waking, that never takes the chance. It's the one who won't be taken, who cannot seem to give, and the soul afraid of dying, who never learns to live. When the night has been too lonely, and the road has been too long, when you think that love is only for the lucky and for the strong, just remember, in the winter, far beneath the bitter snows, lies the sea that with the sun's love in the spring becomes the rose. When the night has been too lonely, and the road has been too long, when you think that love is only for the lucky and the strong, just remember, in the winter, far beneath the bitter snow, lies the sea that with the sun's love in the spring becomes.
The Hour of the Time may be contacted at HOTT, that's H-O-T-T, P.O. Box 940, Eager, spelled E-A-G-A-R, in the state of Arizona, 85925. Our phone number is 928-333-2942, and our website is www.hourofthetime.com.
Good evening, folks. You're listening to the Hour of the Time. I'm William Cooper. Well, tonight you need to get your pen and notebook and, get ready for some pretty heavy stuff to come your way, because we're going to do it again. We're continuing with our groping around in the darkness. Try and find some light. But before we get started, I need to remind you we need donations. It's November. I would really like to get all the donations in and get everything paid and get all that stuff out of the way so I don't have to continually be reminding you throughout the month to send in your donations. But we need them. Without your donations, we can't do anything. We can't stay on the air. We can't even live, to tell you the truth. Can't even buy food. So send your donations to HOTT, H-O-T-T. And remember, folks, we can only accept blank money orders or cash. If you send me a check, I'm going to tear it up and throw it away. I can't use a check. Can't cash it. Okay? Don't even want to cash it. The only thing we can accept is blank money orders. That means you can get a money order in any amount, just leave it blank, keep the receipt, send us the money order. Or cash, or gold, or silver coin. Okay? Blank money order, cash, gold, or silver coin. We need your donations right now. Right now, folks. So please, don't wait. Get them in the mail. Get them to us so we can continue to operate. Send them to HOTT, H-O-T-T, P.O. Box 940. That's P.O. Box 940. Eager, spelled E-A-G-A-R. That's E-A-G-A-R, Arizona, 85925. The most important things are the P.O. Box and the zip code. HOTT, H-O-T-T, P.O. Box 940. That's P.O. Box 940, Eager, Arizona, 85925. Get ready, folks. Gonna blow your mind. Tonight, folks, we're going to learn about the alchemical meme and secret societies. The alchemical meme and secret societies. So prepare yourself. At the heart, ladies and gentlemen, of the alchemical mystery, of course, lies a secret. Now, this is no ordinary secret. It is that which they really want us to believe cannot be told. The experience of gnosis. And they believe, and if you study the occult and the secret societies long enough, you'll understand that they believe that ultimately this inexplicable knowing, the gnosis, cannot be conferred or taught, only incubated and gestated. Now remember, I told you that all through the process of initiation, the climbing up through the degrees of the different brotherhoods or secret societies, one is never told the interpretation of the symbology of the ceremonies, of the initiatory rites, and the esoteric teachings to be found in their writings. One either gets it or one does not. Those who get it are helped up the ladder by those above them, and those who do not progress. Simply, ladies and gentlemen, they do not progress. And they never learn the ultimate secret, which is what we're looking for, isn't it? Somehow, this gnosis has been transmitted from generation to generation through thousands of years. If you doubt that, I suggest that you get into the books and get into the history and do the research that I've done, and you'll find that this underground stream of particular knowledge that one only finds in these secret societies and ancient brotherhoods, what some might call the secret college, is unbroken. And once you understand what it is and you're able to grab hold of any portion of that stream, you can follow it forward or backward through time. And we find the same content and experience of gnosis from the modern Samyama experiments at Maharishi University all the way back to the ancient Egyptians and before. We can find the same content and spontaneous experiences, in fact, from mystics of all eras. The secret at the core of alchemy is an ineffable experience of the real workings of our local cosmological neighborhood. Doubt it not. So how can one incubate and gestate such an experience? The answer may lie in the word transmitted. Modern sociologists, folks, have begun to discuss the concept of memes, or complex idea groups, such as monotheism or democracy, that appear to have the ability to replicate themselves. And memes seem to have other properties as well, such as an unusual psychic component. The spread of spiritualism in the 19th century is a superb example of a viral-like meme outbreak with serious parapsychological implications. A modern version might be the New Age movement. Traces of spiritualism's meme can be found surviving into the New Age 90s with its dolphin channeling and near-death experiences. In fact, if you compare the writings of these two different movements, both occurring in different centuries, you'll find that the ideas and the basic premises are almost exactly the same. The recent film entitled The Sixth Sense is deeply influenced by spiritualism's perspective on the afterlife, conveying the meme directly and powerfully to millions of moviegoers. It helps, folks, to think of the secret at the core of alchemy as a very special and sophisticated variety of meme, like a spore or a seed. The meme has a protective shell that is also attractive to appropriate hosts. And in the case of the alchemy meme, that shell is the seductive allure of transmutation. Transmutation. Look it up. The transformation of base metal into gold. However, even if one absorbs the outer shell of the alchemy meme, there is no guarantee that the inner core is going to blossom and the meme become active. Remember? Far beneath the bitter snow lies a seed that with the sun's love in the spring, etc., etc., etc. The music on this broadcast is never frivolously played, folks. You see, for the core to blossom, a series of shocks or initiations are required, such as a bomb going off at a federal building in Oklahoma City, airplanes crashing into tall twin towers in New York City, killing thousands of people, an atomic bomb dropped upon 2 cities in Japan. A complete and total economic collapse. The sophistication of the alchemy meme is such that the experience of gnosis at its core can only be stimulated by these shocks, folks. Now, the shocks that I told you about are major shocks, not just to individuals, but to entire cultures, and sometimes to the entire world. There is no doubt whatsoever that the dropping of the atomic bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima changed the entire world forever. So to transmit the idea complex, the gnosis meme through times requires a series of encounters between those in whom the meme is active and those who have merely been exposed to it. And from this need evolves the idea of priesthoods. And then, as religious structures degenerated, mystery schools and secret societies. And we can think of these as incubation devices for spiritual memes. Through the millennia, the undigested seed of the alchemy meme was jumbled together with other spiritual memes, creating a seemingly endless series of hybrid spiritual expressions masquerading as alchemy. Pay close attention to that word, masquerading. However, from its first independent appearance in first-century Alexandria to its modern expressions such as Fulcanelli and the Golden Dawn, the secret at the core of the alchemy meme can be traced by its Gnostic ineffableness. The secret protects itself, but in doing so leaves an unmistakable fingerprint. And by following these Gnostic fingerprints, people like me can track the progress of the alchemy meme throughout the history of the human race. In the late 1880s, Dr. W. N. Westcott, the medical examiner for the City of London, was it just happens by chance, an advanced Rosicrucian adept. A Rosicrucian is a member of the ancient order of Rose and Cross. And he was one of the founders of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, 19th century England's most notable occult organization. He tells us in a 1890 lecture on alchemy that it is never taught in so many words. It may dawn on any one of you. The magic event may occur when least expected, just like I've always told you. Thereby demonstrating that he, Dr. W.N. Westcott, at least understood that there was a Gnostic secret at the core of alchemy. Now, he could be taken as an authority. He was steeped in Rosicrucian ideas and in helping to found the Golden Dawn, which was the first semi-public, gender-neutral magical society that accepted both men and women as initiates. He clearly felt he was part of some larger pattern or process, and you'll find that all of these adepts always have that sense of belonging to something larger, always at work. And they are. But they're also known throughout history as the builders. The builders. Always working toward the completion of the great work. Their tools don't make any noise, for the most part. In his aptly named Flying Roll lecture is therefore of more than passing interest. It was given early in the organization's history and was presented to the group at large. And we can think of it as a sort of cozy preaching to the choir type of exposition of the basic Rosicrucian alchemical tradition. But remember, even when speaking to the adepts, they always speak in the esoteric secret language, so that there is no danger ever of the profane, that's you, listening and actually understanding what it is that he or they or any one of them at any time is actually really saying or communicating. The lecture opens with the assertion that alchemy means simply the higher chemistry, which treats with the essential nature of the elements, metals, and minerals. And this is a good direct explanation for the ancient term alchemy, which avoids the pitfalls of speculative philology and other over-esoteric derivations, and it guarantees that you will not understand one word of what it really means. But we will get there. I will make sure that you understand it. It may take quite a few nights of revelatory teaching, but eventually, at least some of you will get it. The next paragraph that he utters plunges us into something very strange. Westcott tells us that the word alchemy was first used by 3rd century Emperor Constantine's court astronomer Julius Firmicus Maternus. He then quotes a curious passage about skill in alchemy depending upon having the moon in the house of Saturn. Now, most of you are lost right there. You think he's talking about astrology. Not on your life. He's talking about time. He's saying the skill in alchemy depends upon having the moon in the house of Saturn. As if this is not confusing enough, Westcott jumps in to ask, what house does he mean? The day, Aquarius, house, or the night, Capricorn, house of Saturn? And then further confuses everyone by wondering if this 4th century astrologer could have meant the attribution as referring to Uranus. Now remember, in ancient days, astrology was astronomy. But we have to assume that he's wrong, because the planet Uranus was not discovered until 1781, and so Constantine's court astrologer could not have been referring to that planet unless he knew something that nobody else knew up until the time of that discovery. And so we might suspect that this is simply bad scholarship, a case of enthusiasm outrunning erudition. Yet Dr. Westcott's scholarship and other works is sound enough. It is as if the comments are a species of in-joke, not meant to be taken literally, but assumed to be metaphor and allegory by those who know the punchline. And since Dr. Westcott's audience included such luminaries as W.B. Yeats, S.L. McGregor, Mathers, Dr. Thomas Berridge, Annie Horniman, Moyna Mathers, Florence Farr, the Reverend Arthur Eiton, the group's practical alchemist A.E. Waite, and other members of the esoteric London scene, it is likely that a number of these folks did indeed understand the in-joke. Possibly many in the group could answer the good coroner's rhetorical questions, even though the rest of us are left wondering what we missed. Those of you who have studied any part of the history of the occult recognize those names as some of the greatest names in the underground stream during the 19th and early 20th centuries. And so the secret protects itself continually, even from those who think they know it. But it is safe to say, folks, that this strange lecture provides an important cluster of clues and impressions with which to begin the hunt. Most of you would have dismissed it as unintelligible dribble. Big mistake. You see, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn had somehow inherited or rediscovered a part of the Gnostic secret at the heart of the alchemical mystery. Westcott, whatever his propensity for occult in-jokes, shows later in his lecture that he does indeed understand the secret quite clearly. He quotes from an old French description of the sequence of the alchemical process. Here's what he says. The sun begins his special form of change in Leo in his own house. Next, Scorpio follows, and the work reaches completion in Sagittarius. End quote. To make sure that we understand, Westcott insists at the close of his lecture that to perform alchemical processes requires a simultaneous operation on the astral plane with that of the physical. Unless you are adept enough to act by willpower, as well as by heat and moisture, life forces, as well as electricity, there will be no adequate result. End quote. And ladies and gentlemen, not one word of that means what you think you heard. The source for this secret would seem to be the Rosicrucian movements that had swirled around Europe since the early 17th century. The Rosicrucians had become, by the late 19th century, the prototypical secret society for incubating the alchemical meme. I bet some of you are just now getting even a glimmer of what alchemical meme even means. Excuse me. In 1555, 1955 indeed. In 1555, Nostradamus penned a quatrain. Here's what he said. A new sect of philosophers shall rise, despising death, gold, honors, and riches. They shall be near the mountains of Germany. They shall have abundance of others to support and follow them. Well, in 1614, a publicly printed text appeared of an anonymous manuscript that had been circulating among Europe's intelligentsia for several years. It was called The Declaration of the Worthy Order of the Rosy Cross. Known by its first two Latin words, Fama Fraternitatis, it revealed the purported existence of a brotherhood founded by one Christian Rosenkreutz, who apparently, according to the legend, lived in the 14th and 15th centuries. But I'm going to tell you right now, he never lived at all. He is, in fact, a metaphor for something entirely different. In Nostradamus' time, the word philosopher was synonymous with alchemist. Here, with a vengeance, was a new sect of philosophers. The Fama tells us of the search for occult knowledge of a man called Christian Rosenkreutz. He traveled to the Middle East, Palestine, Syria, Egypt, North Africa, and Spain before returning to Germany to found his secret brotherhood. Now that's the story, that's the legend. There's no record of a Christian Rosenkreutz ever having lived. No one who ever knew him or wrote about him. Nothing whatsoever. 120 years after Christian Rosenkreutz's death at the advanced age of 106, one of the brethren discovered his tomb and his uncorrupted body. This was the signal for the brotherhood to emerge and spread their message, hence the publication of the Fama. Their message, of course, was nothing less than the dawn of a new golden age. Aha! Now we're getting into some meat here. You've heard me discuss that on many occasions. The announcement of nothing less than the dawn of a new golden age. The Fama informs us that the brotherhood possessed the keys to a secret knowledge, capable, listen very carefully to me, folks, capable of transforming society and ushering in a new era, one in which the world shall awake out of her heavy and drowsy sleep, and with an open heart, bareheaded and barefooted, shall merrily and joyfully meet the new arising sun. Remember I told you the secret is sometimes hidden in plain sight? Well, you just heard it. And the quote is taken directly, verbatim, from the next Rosicrucian production, the Confessio Fraternitatis, a Latin restatement of the basic themes, but with a more direct emphasis on its revolutionary implications. It also goes to the very core of the alchemical mystery. And at this point, you've already heard almost everything that you ever need to know, except how it's done. The Rosicrucians were alchemists, but the Fama and the Confessio are both highly critical of the puffer type of alchemical worker, who sits in his lab and actually attempts to get the mineral gold out of boiling lead. The Fama talks of ungodly and accursed gold making, whereby, under the color of it, many renegades and roguish people do use great villainies and cozen and abuse the credit which is given them. The Fama implies that the Rosicrucians could make gold, but found the higher spiritual alchemy to be more important. No one can literally make gold out of lead. It discussed a higher spiritual alchemy that related to the coming golden age and how to prepare for it. That clearly was the intent behind the publications of the first two Rosicrucian documents. The third volume, however, was very different. The Alchemical Wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz appeared in 1616 and is the only Rosicrucian document to be claimed by its author, Johann Valentin Andrea, a Protestant minister from Germany. Let me say that again, a Protestant minister from Germany. The wedding is full of the occult imagery and surreal metaphors experienced by Christian Rosenkreutz as he observes a royal wedding. It represents nothing less than an attempt to express the inexpressible. And after this strange work, the original Rosicrucians fell silent. They fell silent. And it is not known if they did indeed respond to any of the many thinkers who sprang to their defense, for many did. And there were great intellectual discussions all over Europe about the emergence of this secret order. And we must assume that if they did, the secret was kept. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the movement continued and is active today. Although today there are two branches, one which serves to sort of titillate the minds of those just maybe getting started in study of the occult secrets, and another one is a very serious group of builders indeed. Although obscure, it will be seen that Dr. Westcott's lecture serves as proof that Rosicrucian ideas retained their continuity through the centuries. This alone, ladies and gentlemen, is very impressive. But it is the continuity of content that strikes us most strongly. From this continuity of content, we can deduce the outlines of the secret, the meme itself, and use these outlines, these fingerprints, to trace the core of the tradition back through history by following the underground stream. Ladies and gentlemen, if you will go to your video store and either rent or purchase, and if they don't have it, you can order it, rent or purchase a film called Things to Come. It was made many, many years ago. In that film, you will recognize, if you are an astute student, you will recognize many of the things that I've discussed in our Mystery Babylon series and that I am revealing to you tonight. You will also see a symbol, a globe with wings, a globe with wings. You will also see a war which will remind you of the war raging right now in Afghanistan, being fought in exactly the same manner against a backward, barbaric people by bombing them from the sky repeatedly until they are overcome. It tells of a new world that will emerge, a golden age. Get that movie, watch it. Understand that throughout the history of the world, these adepts, these priests, these followers of Horus, the widow's sons, the sons of light, the builders, have worked in the temples without windows to bring about, ultimately over centuries and millennia, their utopian world. And don't doubt it for a moment. If you do, you will demonstrate, to me at least, that you are a fool. The word alchemy, as a name for the substance of the mystery, is both revealing and concealing of the true initiatory nature of the work, the great work. Alchem, A-L-K-H-E-M, is Arabic for the black. It refers to the darkness of the unconsciousness, the most prima of all materia, and to the black land of Egypt. Thus the name reveals the starting point of the process and the place where this science attained its fullest expression, and the place where the building is carried on. However, this revelation, important as it is, effectively conceals the nature of the transmutation at the heart of the great work. No matter who you are or where you are listening or what you believe in, what religion you have, what creed you adhere to, what race you are, alchemy has been working upon you personally for many years. And you have been affected by it, whether you recognize it or not. It is a fact, it is true. And it's about time that you began to recognize it, so that you can see where it will take you, because it will take you. So let's go back in history, and let's begin in Egypt. For 3,000 years or more, Egypt ruled the known world. In fact, it was the heart of the world. Much of the knowledge that is the underpinning of our own modern culture had its origins in Egypt, believe it or not. Our modern, essentially European view of the ancient world is distorted by the funhouse lenses of Greek and Judaism and Christian history. The Bible gives us an Egypt of powerful pharaohs and pagan magicians, mighty armies, slaves and invasions of pharaohs, chariots and armies out of the south. Herodotus gives us a travelogue, complete with inventive stories from his guides. To the Hebrews of the Old Testament, Egypt was the evil of the world from which God had saved them once before. To the barbarian Greeks, it was an ancient culture to be pillaged for ideas and information. The superimposition, ladies and gentlemen, of these concepts produced a skewed image of Egyptian civilization. Most of what you think you understand about ancient Egypt, you don't understand at all. For instance, the pyramids are at least 3 the greatest pyramids, what we know as the Great Pyramids on the plains at Giza, were not tombs for any pharaohs. They were temples of initiation. And the initiation that the ancient Egyptians performed was much like the initiation of George Herbert Walker Bush and his son, George W. Bush, in the crypt. Why did you think they called it the crypt? At Yale University. To understand the origin of the vast subject alchemy, we must let go of the funhouse lenses and look clearly at what the remains of the ancient Egyptian culture can tell us. So forget everything you've ever been taught. When we do this, two things immediately jump out at us. One, the ancient Egyptians were the most scientifically advanced culture on the planet up until the present day, if we have indeed caught up with them. And two, their science, in fact, their entire culture, seems to be revealed rather than developed. You cannot find a point in Egyptian history where they were learning what they had. They had it from the beginning. Talk about mysteries. The Egyptians claimed that their knowledge was derived from the actions of the divine forces in what they call the first time, or the Zep Tepi. This body of knowledge was passed down through the ages by a group known as the Huru Shimsu, or, as I have taught you on many previous episodes, the body of adepts known as the Company of Horus, or the full body of adepts known as the Congregation of the Mysteries. Remember, Osiris was the doctrine, Isis was the church, and Horus represented the full body of the Congregation of Initiates. Each pharaoh, down to Roman times, was an initiate of the Company of Horus, and so privy to the secret knowledge, and the symbol was, in those days, the emblem of the head of the cobra upon the forehead. Remember, they're also called the Order of the Dragon, the Order of the Snake. The followers of the Luciferian philosophy, some of you call Satan. We can think of this secret knowledge as the core of alchemy. In its broadest sense, however, as we look closer at what the Egyptians tell us about their science, we find that it is based upon an intimate understanding of the stars. We also find that it is coded somehow into many of the ancient monuments that have existed in Egypt for centuries. And if you've listened closely to me on previous broadcasts, I've told you that the sum total of human knowledge was always built into the buildings of the culture of all of the ancient civilizations. These monuments, such as the Sphinx and its temple, point to an even more ancient civilization from which the Egyptians recovered their knowledge. In that sense, the knowledge of the Egyptians, of which alchemy is a half-remembered fragment, is the lost science of the last evolutionary societal epoch. But if it's true, what happened to end this epoch? The legends say that a great catastrophe destroyed this advanced culture, and modern scientific evidence tends to bear that out. One of the earliest of all alchemical texts is the fragmentary Isis the Prophetess to her son Horus, found in the Codex Marcianus, a medieval collection of Greek fragments. This work seems to be a unique blend of Hebrew mysticism and Egyptian mythology that could only have come from Alexandria. Sometime early in the 1st century of what is known as the Christian era, the Egyptian goddess Isis tells her son Horus. Remember, Isis was the mother, sister, wife of Osiris. She tells her son Horus that while he was away fighting and defeating the evil one Set, she was in Hermopolis studying angelic magic and alchemy. She relates that after a certain passing of the Kairoi and the necessary movement of the heavenly sphere, it happened that one of the angels who dwelt in the first firmament saw me from above. The angel is inflamed by sexual passion for Isis, but he can't answer her question about alchemy. He bargains on another encounter by offering to bring a higher angel who will tell her everything that she wants to know. The first angel shows Isis the magical sign of the higher angel, and this sign consists of a bowl of shining water and a moon sign that resembles the emblem of the moon god Khonsu of Thebes. At noon the next day, the angel returns with the higher angel, here called Amnael, A-M-N-A-E-L. And this higher angel also finds Isis desirable and is willing to trade for information. He reveals the mystery of his sign and then swears her to a great oath. In this oath, we find echoes of the great mystery and one of the keys to its explication. And this is the oath. I conjure you in the name of fire, of water, of air, and of the earth. I conjure you in the name of the height of heaven and the depths of earth's underworld. I conjure you in the name of Hermes and Anubis, the howling of Kerkoros and the guardian dragon. I conjure you in the name of the boat and its ferryman, Acherontos. And I conjure you in the name of the three necessities and the whip and the sword. After this strange oath, Isis is told to never reveal the secret to anyone but her son Horus, her closest friend. Now remember, we're not talking about real people here. I told you who these characters really are. The knowledge will make them one, as the knowledge has now made Isis and the angel one. So the church and the congregation will become one. And then a curious thing occurs. When the mystery is revealed, it seems strangely flat, as if something was left unsaid in the answer. Horus is told to watch the peasant, who may or may not have been the mythical boatman Acherontos. He then is given a lecture on, as you sow, so shall you reap. Guess what, folks? This was several thousand years before the birth of Jesus, who said the same thing. As you sow, so shall you reap. Horus is told to realize that this is the whole creation and the whole process of coming into being, and know that a man is only able to produce a man, and a lion, and a dog, and if something happens contrary to nature, then it is a miracle and cannot continue to exist, because nature enjoys nature, and only nature overcomes nature, period. If you understand what it is that she said, it's not flat at all. It's profound truth. Isis goes on to relate that she will now give Horus the secret of preparing certain sands. She says that one must stay with existing nature and the matter one has in hand in order to prepare things. Just as I said before, wheat creates wheat. A man begets a man, and thus gold will harvest gold. Like produces like. Now I have manifested the mystery to you. And after hearing that, do you really believe that gold can be changed from lead? Do you believe that lead can be changed into gold? Not at all. It cannot happen. Despite what Art Bell and his guest who claims that he's done it and can do it and others have done it, they're full of crap. They're bullshitting you big time. They would love for you to think that that's what alchemy is really all about. Because in the process of doing that, they are engaged in alchemy, and they are affecting your beliefs. They're screwing with your minds. The instruction then passes to hands-on lab work in melting and preparing metals such as quicksilver, which is mercury, copper, lead, and of course gold. At the end of this lengthy preparation, Isis exclaims, "Now realize the mystery, my son, the drug, the elixir of the widow." Most people would be sneaking around looking for some kind of a hallucinogenic potion to take. It's a drug of the mind. It's called knowledge of the secret. It holds great power. What are we to make of this strange story? With its curiously flat revelations, well, probably not much at all without the asides that I have conveniently conveyed to you. And if I had not done that, possibly our very earliest alchemical text would present us with the same problems and ambiguities that we will find throughout the entire alchemical corpus. Our body. There seems to be something in the very subject itself that forces its images toward the surreality of pathological metaphor. It is, could be, or is it merely diseased imagination? Or are there meanings beneath the fantasy? And I tell you absolutely yes, meanings of such profound truth, such absolute power over huge numbers of people and things, that those who understand how it works are constantly awed that it works at all and that it works so well. With this in mind, we can see that the name alchemy points to the lost science of the ancients as revived by the Egyptians, and to the darkness of the unconscious, where powerful psychosexual forces can be encountered and used in the process of transformation. Egyptian science, with its concern for stellar movements as the background for mythical dramas, points us another step down the road, as does the realization that there is a core of reality to the process far beyond the purely internal. And as we ravel alchemy's ultimate secret, we will return to the story of Isis and the angel, the origin of alchemy. But first, we need to follow the trail of those who held this information. And since we've already been following that trail for so long on this broadcast, we will, on Monday night, pick it up again. The Hru-Shimsu, the followers of the widow's son. The congregation of Horus. Good night, folks. God bless each and every single one of you. Good night, Annie Poon Allison. I love you. Don't forget, folks, we need your donations, and we need them now. HOT, H-O-T-T, P.O. Box 940. That's HOT, H-O-T-T, P.O. Box 940, Eager, Arizona 85925. Once again, HOT, H-O-T-T, P.O. Box 940, Eager, Arizona 85925. Send them in now so that we can continue this. I would hate to have to leave you hanging because we couldn't pay for the airtime.
The Hour of the Time may be contacted at HOT, that's H-O-T-T, P.O. Box 940, Eager, spelled E-A-G-A-R, in the state of Arizona, 85925. Our phone number is 928-333-2942, and our website is www.houroftetime.com.